This administration and their overwhelming amount of insane BS they pull on a daily basis at times can simply be too damn depressing. So, I thought we would switch things up and go over a well-thought-out article, giving my usual tirades over our idiotic drooler-in-chief a break. But real quickly, I'd like to thank the folks messaging me on Twitter and here in the comments sections. I'll be back to creating videos full-time by the end of November, and I appreciate your concerns. Now let's get started. There are some folks out there who don't believe that critical race theory exists. This despite the fact that many organizations have unapologetically come forward admitting that it does. Now, other morons believe it's just, quote, teaching our history. This despite the fact that we've been teaching our history, more or less, warts and all, at least since I was in first grade 30 some odd years ago. But I get it. It's an objective term and hard to define. So let's get rid of the hard to define terms and go with some hard, factual examples. Now, before we get too much further, let's take a quick commercial break to pay some bills. Friends, I'm going to point out the obvious. It seems like big government and big tech are trying to destroy America. Everything they touch turns into a disaster. Pretty soon the whole system will fall apart, and the first thing to fall will be the food supply chain. So, do you have enough emergency food to get through a serious long-term crisis where you can't get food at the grocery store? Most people don't, and they'll panic when the time comes. That is why the smart move now is to get long-term storage emergency food before things go bad. I highly recommend My Patriot Supply. They've served millions of American families and have over 41,000 4-star and 5-star reviews. Their mission is your survival, and right now you can save 25% on a 4-week kit of emergency food that will save the day, probably soon. Order a starter kit for each member of your family and they'll ship everything quickly and discreetly to your door. Go to preparewithresurgence.com so you can claim your 4-week emergency food kit and save 25% in the process. That's preparewithresurgence.com or hit that link in the description box. Now, this particular example doesn't come from the education sphere, but it does show how race, which, as a reminder, is a made-up construct. We all belong to one race, the human race. Anyways, race has been weaponized, and when everything is racist, nothing is racist. It involves two minorities. Again, I don't even know what the hell that particular term really means, but it's what the left would like us to focus on, so I'll play the left's game for the purposes of this example and point it out. Lorena Gonzalez, a Hispanic woman, and Bruce Harrell, a half-black, half-Japanese man. The two were running for mayor of that hellhole we still call Seattle. Harrell said something a number of years ago when the gay white mayor at the time was accused by numerous men of child sexual molestation. Now, I certainly don't care how much pigment is in your skin or who the hell you're attracted to, but since this is all about identity politics and that man was elected largely because he was the gay candidate, if we're being honest, I figure I'll include it in the narrative. So, as we've seen time and time again, before all the facts had come to light, and that mayor had resigned in disgrace after it was clear the allegations weren't just, quote, a homophobic attack trying to paint all gay men as child sex abusers, Harrell came to his defense by speaking the unspeakable, namely pointing out that we should follow due process and not jump to any conclusions. Crazy, right? Now, because of Harrell's unspeakable comment, Gonzalez has launched a campaign ad using those and other things he said out of context, as well as having some other people insinuate that he is a, quote, rape apologist. Now, of course, dirty politics is nothing new. What is fairly new is immediately defaulting to you're a racist. In this case, according to those deemed worthy to judge these things. Gonzalez is a racist because apparently there's some racist trope about black men being rapists, and Harrell is apparently black. Quick side note, not that I've ever given it any real amount of thought, but when I saw this article and was forced, because here in America in 2021 we are forced to think about race. I've known of Harrell for a number of years. My immediate thought was, isn't he Japanese? Point being, you see, folks, that it can't be that Gonzalez is just playing dirty politics here. That has nothing to do with Harrell's skin color. although it is good to know where black Japanese men rank compared to Hispanic women the next time I'm playing intersectionality bingo. Okay, let's bring this all back to the beginning because that example was a long one. It was a little too intricate, the woven idiocy of racial rankings in CRT. So CRT views all of history and socio-political relations through the lens of race. As I heard one proponent of CRT quip, racism in America is like a pie. It's baked right in. In 2021, if someone cuts you off in traffic and you happen to be black, he's a racist. If you don't get a job, it's because the company is racist. The disproportionate number of black people in prison can only be attributed to racism. And there can't possibly be any other explanation. It can't be that the person who cut you off is a shitty driver or rushing home because his wife just went into labor. It certainly can't be that the other person was just more qualified, did a better job at interviewing, or provided better references. It certainly can't be that 90% of prison inmates grew up without a father. Just imagine if we focused on that for a couple of years in this country. What a difference it would make. If your opponent attacks you in an admittedly dirty way, it can't be that she's just doing what politicians have been doing since the dawn of time and just trying to get a shot in any way she can. It has to be that she's a racist. It's gotten so bad that it's almost comical. The LA Times ran a column calling Larry Elder, quote, the black face of white supremacy. Hashtag Uncle Tim trended on Twitter after Senator Tim Scott gave the response to the State of the Union address. Joe Biden even told voters, you ain't black if you won't vote for me. Remember that? So examples like this make it clear that this has zero to do with race and everything to do with pushing a statist agenda. Those who get in line are everything that is good and holy in the world. Those who don't are obviously racist. We get what we focus on, folks. If we want to be divided by race and all those other fun little boxes those who seek to control us try to put us in, we'll get those boxes and that division. Or we can just follow the words of Morgan Freeman and just stop talking about it. There used to be rampant discrimination against Italians, Irish, and Catholics, but Joe Biden's Catholicism was barely mentioned during the 2020 election. Just thought I'd throw that in there. Division is the problem. If we don't seek to stop division, it will never be stopped. Let's say we, quote, solve racism. People will just find another reason to divide themselves. Read the Butter Battle book by Dr. Seuss, which was an allegory of the then-raging Cold War, but involved two groups at war over something as silly as whether they ate their toast butter side up or butter side down. You may recall this book, and yes, leftists of all ages should really read it. You know, considering some of the idiotic things we see fights break out over, I'm not sure that would qualify as a satire anymore. So the next time someone says something you perceive as mean or unfair, or cuts you off in traffic, or you lose out on a job or a table at a restaurant to someone else who happens to be of a different ethnicity, religion, sex, etc., you can throw yourself a pity party, call up the ACLU, NAACP, and whatever other acronym you can think of. Or hell, just sue everyone in sight over this great tragedy you had to suffer through, you poor thing. Or you can think, that person may just have been having a bad day. Or maybe, just maybe, he has a difference of opinion from mine. And it doesn't have a damn thing to do with their skin color or any other superficial differences that exist. And maybe, just maybe, I should see what common ground we actually have. Bottom line, this idiotic obsession with racial shaming does nothing but create racism on both sides. But something tells me that the powers that be know that. They damn well depend on it too. On that note, I'm going to call it a day. Most of this came by way of American Thinker. If you liked it, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't. Leave a comment down below. There's a PayPal link in the description box, so please put $1 in the bucket on the way out the door. I'd like to thank everyone for all your donations. Much needed, much appreciated. Now, with all that being said, we'll see you next time.
Come on, move. Move. Easy, easy.